Here, the 2026 assessment rule findings. City Assessor Eddie Lee will present, and then we'll open it up for questions. So I'll turn it over to Eddie.
Hello, and thank you for attending the 2026 Property Assessment Role Briefing. My name is Eddie Lee, Director of Assessment and Tax and City Assessor. Before I begin, I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate and acknowledge that we are gathered on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, made up of the Siksika, Piikani, Omska-Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, Yetha, Nakota, Wiskatabe First Nations, comprised of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and the Goodstoney First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. The State of Calgary is also homeland to the historic Northwest Métis and the Optipi-Missiyok Métis Government, Métis Nation Battle River Territory, Nose Hill Métis District 5, and Elbow Métis District 6. We acknowledge all Indigenous people who have made Calgary their home. Today, I will provide an overview of the 2026 assessment role, highlighting key findings for residential and non-residential properties. I will discuss assessment notice mailing, what property owners need to know, and the resulting tax implications. Let's start by reviewing the assessment, budget, and tax cycle. July 1st, 2025 was the legislated valuation date that the 2026 property assessments are based upon. In December, Council approved adjustments to the city's service plans and budgets, which determines the amount of property tax the city requires. December 31st was the property characteristics and physical condition date property assessments are based on. Yesterday, we mailed over 600,000 assessment notices, kicking off the customer review period running until March 23rd. Following the release of the provincial budget, property tax rates are finalized and tax bills are mailed in May with a due date of June 30th, 2026. Throughout each stage, we prepare, collaborate, and explain the process, bringing us to where we are today. Yesterday, on January 14th, we sent out over 614,000 property assessment notices worth over $457 billion in assessed value. Property owners who have signed up for e-notice will not only be helping the environment and reducing costs, but they will already have access to their 2026 property assessment notice as well as previous year's notices by logging in to MyTax at calgary.ca/assessment. Those that haven't signed up for e-notice should look for their notice to arrive by mail over the next week. It's important to remember that a property's 2026 assessment notice is an estimate of property's market value on July 1st, 2025. It's not an estimate of a property's market value when a property owner receives their notice or the value it was on the last day of 2025. If the property characteristics and condition of the property changes after the valuation date of July 1st, the assessment will reflect the property characteristics as of December 31st, 2025. It's also important to remember an assessment notice is not a tax bill. There is no payment required, and if the owner of the property feels the assessed amount is an accurate reflection of their market value from July 1st, 2025, and has no questions, no action is required. If an owner has concerns or questions about their assessed value, they should visit calgary.ca/assessment or call 311 before March 23rd, which is the last day of the customer review period. Looking at how the residential and non-residential classes have changed since last year's assessment, the typical residential market change is 1% this year, compared to 15% last year. The residential market includes detached and semi-detached homes, condominiums, and multi-residential rental apartments and vacant land. Over the past year, we have seen a return to a more balanced market. Key drivers of this trend include stabilizing net migration and an increased housing supply. The non-residential market remains resilient, with industrial properties continuing to lead growth. Retail continues to grow, while office challenges persist but show signs of improvement. Overall, the non-residential sector also experienced a modest 1% increase. While the typical residential change is 1%, this isn't uniform across all property types of residential property. Single residential, which makes up the largest property type in the residential assessment class with almost 350,000 properties, showed a citywide trend towards moderation. The typical change for single residential is 1%. Residential condominiums represent the second largest property type with approximately 218,000 units. This year, the market is relatively flat compared to last year's growth, signaling reduced market pressure and greater stability. The typical change for residential condominiums is minus 3%. Multi-residential rental apartments make up only a small fraction of the residential assessment class, with only about 2,500 properties. However, they showed the strongest demand, which was driven by sustained population growth, shifting housing preferences, and large increase in construction in that category. The typical change for multi-residential rental apartments is 8%. Now that we know how the markets have changed, let's look at the median assessed values. The 2026 median single residential assessment is $706,000 compared to $697,000 in 2025. The 2026 median residential condominium assessment is $347,000 compared to $359,000 in 2025. These changes indicate that Calgary's housing market has achieved a balanced position and continues to demonstrate strength. Let's look at the municipal tax implications, taking into account both assessment and the city budgetary changes made in December. The change a homeowner will see on their tax bill will be higher, as these numbers are only for the city portion of property tax and don't include the planned provincial increase. In 2025, the city's portion was approximately 63% of the total residential property tax bill, with the other 37% going directly to the province. For the median single residential house who saw their assessment increase by 1%, their municipal tax increases by about 1.6% or $3.57 a month. For the median residential condo who saw their assessment decrease by 3%, their municipal tax decreases by about 3.1% or $3.54 a month. Individual tax changes will vary depending on your individual assessments. Use a tax calculator to get an estimate of your tax changes. This map shows the single residential and residential condominium revenue neutral tax changes by community. You can clearly see that the communities that have a higher concentration of condos are decreasing. Now, let's look at the non-residential market. Overall, non-residential property types have increased in value 1%, reflecting strength within the assessment class. Industrial is seeing a 3% increase and continues to be the strongest performing non-residential sector, supported by Calgary's strategic role as a key distribution hub. Retail recorded a 2% increase, reflecting stable demand across established and emerging corridors. Office experienced a 4% decrease due to ongoing uncertainty and challenges stemming from mergers and acquisitions in the energy sector. However, growth in the technology sector offers optimism for future recovery. So, what does this all mean in terms of property taxes? Each year, the city and the province separately set a budget and decide how much money they need from property tax. The city sets ours in December, and province will share their finalized budget in the spring. Last year, 63% of residential property tax stayed in Calgary and 37% was sent to the province. It's important to remember that property assessment changes are revenue neutral, meaning that assessments do not change the total property tax revenue the city collects. It is merely used to determine a property owner's individual share of property tax. A tax rate is based on dividing the budgeted tax revenue by the total taxable assessment base. Another factor in determining a property owner's share of property tax is assessment class their property falls under, whether it's residential, non-residential, or farmland. Each of these property types have different tax rates. The applicable tax rate is then multiplied by the assessment to get a property owner's tax bill, which will be mailed in May and due June 30th, 2026. As both the residential and non-residential typical change is 1%, this graphic applies to both residential and non-residential property owners. A property owner can find a graph on the front of their assessment notice that displays their property's value change from last year, along with a typical market change of their assessment class. Comparing the two can help a property owner see how their share of property tax is changing. It is important to remember that this is only the property owner's share of the total property tax collected. Even if their share remains the same, their property tax bill will increase by 1.6% due to the 2026 city budget changes. Property tax bills will also be affected by the provincial property tax budget. Based on the current indications from the province, we estimate an increase of approximately 11.9% for the median single residential home. If a property owner is looking to get an estimate of their 2026 property tax bill, the best way is to go to our tax calculator at calgary.ca/tax calculator. On the page, property owners will get a breakdown of their tax bill. This year, it is estimated that the residential property taxes collected on behalf of the province will increase from 37% to 40%. Property tax dollars going to the city contribute to making Calgary a great place to live, with the majority going to keeping Calgarians safe through police, fire, and emergency response, helping them move through public transit, streets, and pathways, building and maintaining infrastructure, and improving lives through housing, parks, and recreation. The customer review period runs until March 23rd and provides property owners the opportunity to review their assessment. If they feel their assessment is an accurate reflection of their market value from July 1st, 2025, and has no questions, no action is required. If a property owner feels their property assessment is not an accurate reflection of their market value from July 1st, 2025, or has questions during the customer review period, they should go to calgary.ca/assessment and log on to MyTax and confirm and update their property detailed information, compare their assessed value to other similar properties to ensure fairness and equity by using the map and sales tools, review real estate market trends, property sales, and learn how the property is assessed. While logged in, sign up for e-Notice to help reduce costs, environmental impacts, and access previous year's assessment notices and tax bills. If you have further questions, please call us at 311 before March 23rd. In most cases, we can resolve concerns without a need for a formal complaint to the Independent Assessment Review Board. Please note that March 23rd is the final deadline to file a complaint. While online, don't forget to sign up for the Tax Installment Payment Plan, or TIP, at calgary.ca/tip. This program makes tax payments more manageable and is our most popular payment option. It allows property owners to pay the equivalent of their annual property tax bill in 12 monthly installments rather than a single lump sum due on June 30th. Smaller automatic monthly installments help property owners budget and removes their risk of late payment penalties. TIP installments are recalculated twice a year. This ensures property owners pay the same amount as their annual tax bill, no more, no less. There is no charge to join TIP, and property owners don't need to reapply each year. Here's an overview of available resources. In addition to our website and online tools, we offer translated assessment notices, brochures, and an informational video in 6 languages: Mandarin, Spanish, Punjabi, Arabic, Pashto, and French. Our property tax calculator, widely used by property owners, helps estimate tax responsibility before tax bills are mailed in May. This estimate will be updated later in the spring when the province sets its budget and Council approves the 2026 property tax bylaw. We also host the Ask the City Assessor, a free online event on January 28th from 7 to 8 p.m. where homeowners can ask me assessment-related questions. And to reiterate, please contact us. Our team is available to answer your questions. Call us at 311. Thank you for your time. I now welcome your questions. So the property tax budgets for the province and the city are completely different. So we set our property tax budget back in early December, and the province will finalize theirs expected at the end of February, early March there. So with that projection, we are seeing increase for the single residential home, which is estimated to be about 11.9%. So when you break that down into monthly payment, the city's portion is about roughly $3.50 a month. The province is about $16 a month for a total of $19 a month. Yeah, so the amount of tax that the city will collect will remain the same. It's a completely separate budgeting mechanism, and the province will let Calgary know, what the requisition will be in the spring, at the end of February there. So those numbers will not change. Yeah, I don't think I can separate out which one contributed how much percent to the increases from previous years, but we have definitely seen, less net migration due to, immigration changes, those sorts of things, and increase of building homes, right? The housing supply. In the past few years, we have seen record, in terms of construction. All of those factors have helped contribute to a more balanced residential market. Yeah, most of the drop is in the downtown office sector. Most of it is, I would say, the mid-tier A quality properties. The double A still remains to be a strength in the market in terms of we are still seeing tenants, what they call flight to quality. They go from the less desirable buildings to the newer, flashier, more modern buildings with modern amenities. So that's what we are seeing in the downtown office market. Yeah, a good question. So those numbers have not been finalized. They are taken from the Alberta's budget 2025 document, where they have indicated their intent to continually increase the amount of property taxes the province collects to fund education. Yeah, so again, it's from the amount that the province had indicated within their budget 2025 document, as well combined with the assessment values that the city produces. Not as the city assessor, but I recall back in 2008 era when there was the dot-com bust and the subprime mortgage scenario, we saw residential and non-residential values, climb at really high rates, and then that happened, and then we saw declines in assessment values or market values as a whole. Yeah, we will have to take a look at the sales that occur from July 1st into the following July 1st of 2026. But so far in the market, we are seeing more a stable trend versus significant increases or decreases. As some of you may recall, last year or a year prior, we saw markets where there would be bidding wars on houses. Oftentimes, the prices that a home would sell for would be much higher than what the asking price is. We are not seeing that same level of volatility in the market. It's definitely more stable. And that's so far what we would expect for next year. But time will tell. We still got half a year of market to look into. So this year, it's still too early because we just mailed out our assessments yesterday. Most Calgarians would not have received their assessment notice yet through the mail. Last year, we saw roughly 3,400 assessment complaints through the Assessment Review Board. It was a slight increase over 2024 numbers. This year, we would anticipate probably lower numbers than that. Oftentimes, the complaint numbers are correlated with how much the assessment changes were. Like I said, last year, in terms of residential, the average increase was 15%, and this year it's a 1%. So we anticipate probably fewer complaints than 3,400 this year. Yeah, so yes. So every single year we take a look at the physical characteristics and the condition of a home. And for those properties, the hail damage that affected those, in terms of, damage to the windows, damage to the siding, damage to the roofing, would have been repaired. So so our assessments this year would reflect that repair of those homes. When I look at the map, I did not see that trend. The one trend that I did observe is that we did see the communities with a higher concentration of condos not be decreasing versus the majority of communities that are more single, detached, semi-detached have more of those types of homes.